Good morning.
Good morning.
I was going to say, tell me somebody's there.
Morning.
Good
Morning.
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 Hey, morning.
Brett.
We've got a lot to go through. Mr. Bass, how are you?
Doing good.
I see John, Keith, Topo, Maxwell, Jeffrey, lots of people. All right, let's jump. So, come on, computer, work with me. All right. So let's hit the numbers and then jump into this. So Broward County single family, 856 active status changes, but 228 went under contract and 189 went pending. Let's stop there. Largest 7-day total year to date. What do you make of that, Mr. Bass?
The market has turned solidly.
Yeah. Really, really good. There's 251 closed out in the last 7 days in Broward County. End of month numbers, of course, right? Like, and I do think they'll go up because today's the first day of the new month, first business day. And we poke fun, but not everybody closes their transactions out on time in the MLS, right? But still, not as many expireds as we saw at the end of January, but still a pretty high number, right? Broward County condos. Whoop, whoop. Come on, my mouse is moving a little fast on me. 1,068 active status changes, really high. We've been over 1,000 almost every single week. 124. So look how consistent these numbers are of condos going under contract on a week-to-week basis. It's kind of crazy. Yet 136 went pending and 189 closed out. And there were 237 expired at the end of February compared to 254 expiring out at the end of January. If I go Miami-Dade had 806 active status changes on single family. 155 went under contract and 204 went pending. So what's that? 359 compared to don't even think we've seen that high of a week in Miami-Dade. Obviously, it's heavier on the pending side, but 205 closed out. Miami-Dade single family, 149 expired compared to 159 at the end of January. Miami-Dade condos, 993 active status changes, 101 under contract, 158 pending. So what's that, 259? We've been popping. So I wouldn't say it was the best week ever, but certainly the best week for closings in the condo market in Miami-Dade County. 280 expired compared to 311 the week before. And then if I jump down to Palm Beach, 924 active status changes in single family, 246 went under contract, 160 went pending. We've had 2 weeks of really big numbers. And then 309 closed out at the end of February. Only 24 expired single family compared to 35 at the end of January. If I jump down to Palm Beach condos, 845 active status changes, 139 under contract, largest we've seen this year, 99 pending. Put them together, that's 238. We had a bigger week last week and certainly a huge week the week before, but 183 closed out. Richard Bass, what do you make?
Brett, going back to the first of the year, we saw the market start shifting, and it's getting stronger. We can say some of it is the interest rates coming down. They ticked down to 5.99. which is the psychological number that they were expecting to see for people to break through and come back into the market. We're seeing it.
Yeah, for sure. Rick, you got any comments?
I mean, the reality is there's only one indicator of future opportunity, and that's trajectory from the past. And what I see is a steady, Freddie trajectory in most categories in most areas. And
Yeah.
that's an inspired place to be, knowing things are going in the right direction for now.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
there's an article on the South Florida Business Journal. The headline says Palm Beach County home sales lead South Florida market, but there's a lot of rich data inside this article. So, yes, Palm Beach County single family homes surged 10.2% in January. That's a big uptick in single family in Palm Beach. Then it says Miami-Dade luxury home sales jumped 21% for properties over a million. So we certainly have talked in many different contexts about how there's really kind of four segments. There's the separation between what the single family experience looks like versus the condo experience. But there's also a segment between median home price market and luxury in both those segments as well. So what we're seeing is single family obviously is stronger than condo market at the moment in terms of just the home sales or actual units transacting. And then we're also seeing the condo market coming up pretty fast, but luxury seems to be really, really strong. Richard, what do you see?
The, yeah, the luxury market still has a greater percentage of homes for sale, saleable. And people are out there looking. 750 doesn't buy you much anymore. $1 million doesn't buy you much anymore. And the luxury market, to peg that at over $1 million, that's where the strength is in all three of the counties.
Yeah. And then it goes on to say luxury, Florida realtors reported January new listings hit an all-time high. I think this is a powerful statement in the sense that people that have been in some kind of locked in effect or waiting effect are tired of waiting. Like people are ready to transact real estate and they're starting to put their houses on the market. They're starting to create the inventory we need. There's some other data points in here, like single family home sales in the Tri County region increased 4.3% compared to the same month a year ago. Sales price went up 3.1%. So one of the questions I think realtors are getting asked a lot is what's happening to prices. So certainly the single family home market prices are still increasing. Condos are a little different. But throughout Florida, single family home sales were up 6%, while the median price slipped 1.2, but not in our market. So
Mhm.
we're stronger than the state of Florida. Um, the condo sales increased 1.6%, so a meager increase, but the sales price did slip 1.3%. So now, granted, I'm being general when I say condos, we sold more, but prices went backwards. I don't think the luxury is the same story, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. But you also realize 1.6%, no, 1.3% decrease in prices is minimal, right? I mean, look at that number. You're talking a price decrease of
$3,000.
$4,000 on a
Yeah,
$335,000 condo. That's, people read the headlines and they panic thinking prices are dropping.
yeah.
They're really not. They're holding even.
So I
I
would
would say they're
encourage
stable.
everybody to pull this article down. It breaks it down into the three counties, gives some more specific stats. Like here's where they're talking about Palm Beach surged 10.2% to 937 sales. Well, 10% of sales is 90 sales. So is that a lot? Well, for January, probably. But to scream from the rooftops about 90 sales, I mean, it sells news articles, right? All right, let's move on. So the first time I put this mortgage rate up here with a five on it. And at the end of business Friday, the rates were averaging 5.99. I have talked to many mortgage professionals over the years, and they all generally agree that this Mortgage News Daily is probably the safest place to track mortgage rates because the data, the way the data is collected is done in a fair and equitable way, I should say. However, the question that is on everybody's mind is what's going to happen now that we had escalation in international conflict in Iran over the weekend. And the way Logan and Housing Wire breaks this down is he says, look, normally, uh, traditionally, when there's a military conflict in the Middle East, people would expect money to flow into the US dollars and the US bond market as a safe haven, and oil prices would rise. But in the last few years, this really hasn't happened. So if money flew into the US dollars and the US bond market, it would pull interest rates even further down. But we don't know yet. So what's going to happen today? I believe the stock market's going to open. There's going to be some fear, and we're going to see how the Wall Street reacts to what happened over the weekend, and that reaction is going to determine what mortgage rates do this week. My suspicion is they go up to 6.25. I may be completely off base, but I think there was a moment where we were on a great path of 6% interest rates. And my suspicion is first part of this week, they're going to escalate. What do y'all think is going to happen?
I think it comes down to consumer confidence and feeling safe as a general answer. And I
Yeah.
think that, if consumers feel threatened, they tend to make less rational decisions being polite. And decisions means not spending or expanding or extending. And those are things that have an effect on the economy short term. I don't think it's a long-term threat, but again, crystal balling this thing, nobody really knows.
Well, that's what they're saying is, uh, where did he put it? Let's check this question. Uh, it's saying for part of this, I believe is traders don't fear a wider escalation in the Middle East and see these events being contained. Most people don't believe this conflict in Iran is going to last for an extended period of time, I believe. So I think we may not even see much change at all, but I do would anticipate rates in the short term to go back up this week, just as a result of this.
Yeah. Well, I think, as Rick had said, it comes down to consumer confidence. And, I'm still at my home office, haven't left yet, but I will be willing to bet that within the next day or two, you're going to see gas prices spike up.
So can
No
I,
need for it, but that's always what happens when there's any uncertainty. And that's the first thing that the consumers are looking at because that affects their pocketbook on a weekly basis when they fill up their car.
I
And I'm
I'm
not
just
sure. I mean, this,
curious. I'm
right?
just curious
Yeah.
because I think gas prices get a lot of headlines. But if I asked or polled the audience, what did you pay per gallon last week? I would venture to say less than 10% could even quote it. I think most people just put the gas in their car these days.
But just realize my opinion is agreed. And it's the headline in the news and the media that's going to
I
go
agree.
spinning up a
Agree.
story to capture eyeballs. And that's what creates consumer sentiment more than the reality. And to Richard's point, sure, they'll probably escalate pricing on gas, but is there really a supply chain effect in a day or two? If there is, I'd be stunned. And so it's a narrative that I think follow the money kind of narrative. Like if it there's opportunity in every situation and kind of goes back to is there a good or bad market? The answer is no, there's just a market. And what's the opportunity of the moment? And every industry has their moment of opportunity, and this could be one.
Yeah,
All right,
I agree. You know,
Costello.
in the US, we are somewhat isolated from all of this. We read the headlines, but we're not affected by bombs dropping anywhere. We're not worried about going out and shopping and the grocery store blowing up in our face. Uh, as a whole, I think we ignore a lot of this. Um, but yeah, it all comes down to what the headlines are day to day, almost hour to hour with this as to how people feel.
Yeah, I gotcha. I'm reading the chat. So apparently Frankie and Dave knew what they paid, and Dave went to Costco. And
Sounds smart to me.
Michelle's
That's
dad
almost
said,
always
"Did you
where you
fill your
should go.
car up?" It's kind of like that story when everybody runs to the grocery store and buys all the toilet paper and all the stuff up the
Yes.
shelf. The consumer response is always interesting. And it's not, to Rick's point, it's not always rational, right?
Mm-mm.
Like, yet that our interest rates are going to be affected by that consumer response. Our real estate market's going to be affected by that consumer response. And it's probably very short term. So I wouldn't panic about it, is what I'm saying.
Mm-mm.
Well, and we all consumer spending habits are all so personal. If I can get to a gas station and save 20 minutes, I'll pay 10 cents more a gallon, just personally. Convenience, that's just me. So,
Yeah.
but I admire those that are fighting for your best gas price. You should.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, I have a question for Dave. He went to Costco. Dave drives an electric vehicle like I do. You don't go to Costco, you plug it in at home.
Probably his wife's car. I don't know. All right, moving on. Um, I want to hit a picture real quick. Let me take my screen down and pull this picture up. So I saw this picture last week, and it was fascinating because I've heard, and we've talked about how the median first-time home buyer age was hitting 38 and 40. However, we're always quoting NAR. And there are other entities that track this median first time homebuyer age, and NAR is the only one quoting 40. The others are still quoting 32 to 34. So I'm going to take that with a grain of salt in the sense that I don't know who's right, but I don't know that it's exactly 40. Not that NAR's data is wrong, but if you're looking at the age average across the board here, it's probably still closer to 32 to 34. What do you think? What do y'all feel? Like if you're selling people their first time home, what age are they?
Can I add one thing? You would
Yeah.
assume that most first-time homeowners they're not paying cash more often than not. Like, is that a fair assumption? And if so, I
That's
wonder
fair.
where the data flow comes to NAR over like you'd almost think the National Mortgage Database or maybe the Reserve Bank because they're managing loans and have very detailed content or information. So I'm just speculating on the sources. I don't know if anyone's
Yeah.
put thought into that.
One of the
Anyway,
things that I found a long time ago in looking at stats, Rick, you've really got to go into them deep. And the first question is, what is the question they're asking, or where are they getting their data from in order to drive
Exactly.
this? What is the definition of a first-time home buyer for all of these people? NAR's definition, I believe, is anybody that has not owned a home for the previous 3 years. You could be 60, having been rented for the last, 5 or 6 years. You're buying a home, you're considered a first-time home buyer. To me, that skews what these numbers are. And my guess is the rest of them are using different statistics than NAR is.
Yeah, I'm just looking in the chat and everybody's saying 30s and 20s. Jennifer Weisberg said, I've had several in their 20s. Michelle said, folks coming into my listing have been in their 30s, it seems. Uh, just got a new buyer couple and they're 25 and 26. That makes me happy, right? Like I felt like we were in a period of time where that first time home buyer are being priced out. Frankie said she's had several over 45 years old. Um, uh, August may have a point. Trust fund babies. What percentage are in that category? Vicky's saying 20s and 50s. All right. Well, anyway, I just thought
I'll,
I'd throw it up to challenge the thought process because it's fascinating to me that when we start quoting data. All right.
I'll add, can I add one more quick point?
Yes.
That's the median. That's if you took 100 people and lined them up, it's the very middle versus the average. So that's sometimes with anomalies high and low. And I would think there's fewer anomalies on the low side of mid 30s and more on the high side that might drive. I'm not a statistician, but just realize it's a median number, not average.
Yeah.
A warning label here, if you're going to use stats in your presentation, especially at high educated sellers, if you're wrong, they're going to make you look really stupid real fast. And I don't like to be wrong in a listing presentation.
There you go. Yep. All right. So Gary Keller put out an article on Housing Wire last week. Says why broad listing exposure still matters in real estate. Gary Keller's coming out and saying sellers should choose, but broker pitches should not replace clear pros and cons about exposure and price discovery. So I'll just hit the headlines. Keller argues that MLS provides the broadest exposure and price discovery for sellers. While private listings can reduce competition by design, he calls for standardized, balanced disclosures so consumers can weigh privacy benefits against potential pricing and access trade-offs. So there's certainly a hot topic in the marketplace around doing a coming soon or a off market or a private listing. And one of the things that we know, and I'd be curious to hear a broker perspective, Richard, is there is a liability attached to that in the sense that if you market a property and get the broadest exposure on that property, that has been proven true to net the most amount of money for a seller, meaning the widest net you cast around a property in theory will drive the widest or the highest return for a seller. Now, I understand there's reasons why you wouldn't want to put a house on market, yet as a real estate professional, you want to make sure you're disclosing the pros and cons so you don't get trapped into some kind of a lawsuit or some kind of consumer saying you sold their house too low because of a suggested marketing strategy. And Gary kind of lays that out in this. I'm curious, Richard, what's your thoughts?
It's wow. Hadn't thought about the liability part of that, but yeah, thinking about it real quick, this can open Compass and all their other companies now up for potential lawsuits from sellers. Gary's point in this is about full disclosure. And are you honestly telling them what the pros and cons are of doing a coming soon, it's not even coming soon, it's private network listings. I'm totally against the private network listing. I think it's absurd. There's no way that's in the benefit of a consumer. In Florida, we have coming soon status, where for a short period of time, you can put it in the MLS, you can then market it, you just can't show it during that time frame. The benefit of that is you're letting everybody know that the property is there, it's listed, it's going to be hitting the market, and you're building more excitement the day it actually goes live. This isn't doing that.
Yeah, I
Eh,
don't disagree. He's saying my issue is full disclosure where the seller is fully informed of their options and the potential benefits and pitfalls of each. So like if a
Mhm.
agent takes a private listing, Zillow will not put that listing on Zillow. And I think other big portals are going to follow suit. So you potentially could damage a seller by doing a private listing and unintentionally not disclosing that could land in a lawsuit. I think there's a class action lawsuit that will brew from
It's
this whole thing.
It's got to
Um,
be a Sherman. It's got to be a Sherman antitrust situation at some point if they're manipulating the market with their inside circle of their distribution channel and not making it widely available. But that's one conversation. Like, what's their liability? I think the other question that's more relevant is what's ours in being transparent and fully disclosed in writing so that you don't fall prey to an assumption that, you don't have an informed buyer or seller making smart decisions.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, there's a
you,
second article that's talking about with Rocket, Compass is striking at organized real estate. So do we agree or disagree is irrelevant. I think the question is what's the path for the consumer? And I really think the path for the consumer is disclosure because if somebody was to take a private listing, which I agree there's reasons why a seller would choose that, yet if they're not disclosed properly, you're at risk. And that's the bottom line, I think. So I just don't know that there's any data that says private listings actually sell property. Um, and secondly, there's certainly not data that says it nets a seller more money. But it is a thing in the marketplace right now, and we need to make sure everybody's kind of in tune with this conversation. Make sense?
but here's one of the
Would you add
keys to
anything?
this, in my opinion. Um, the general public has no idea that this debate's even going on.
Correct.
Only when they want to sell a property and they're calling a realtor, if they get a Keller Williams realtor sitting in front of them versus a Compass realtor sitting in front of them, it'll tell them a different story. And Compass is telling them, my belief is Compass is telling them half a story. They're telling them why they're doing this, that it doesn't count for days on market when it goes active, that we can try it out and take a price reduction and it doesn't show up in the MLS so that potential buyers don't know about it. And that's the story they're telling them.
Yeah. There's a lot of international companies in different countries that take open listings, meaning 10 agents can list the same house versus an exclusive listing. Who's right and who's wrong's up for debate. In our country and in our market, there's these debates of private listing versus open MLS and disclosure. Who's right and who's wrong is up for debate. I'm not going to say they're wrong and we're right. I'm going to say it's up for debate, and I'm going to always land in the theme that the consumer, with full disclosure, makes an educated decision, and we present options.
Yep,
Make sense? All
absolutely.
right. Another weird article that I found, which lands in disclosure as well, is it's talking about listing agents saying buyer beware won't prevent a lawsuit. So, unlike a car salesman or furniture retailer, agents operate under a license issued by the state. That license comes with fiduciary duties. So there's a dangerous myth circulating among some real estate professionals, and it's time we address it head on. The myth is the belief that the phrase buyer beware or the practice of selling a property strictly as is somehow shields agents from liability. Too many agents fall into the trap of thinking if I tell a buyer it's their job to do due diligence, I'm covered. He's saying, let me be crystal clear, that mindset is wrong, risky, and could cost you dearly in court. or with your state licensing board. Why? Because buyer beware is a doctrine that applies to salespeople. And you are not just a salesperson, you're a licensed professional. That distinction changes everything. Mr. Bass, broker extraordinaire, what's your opinion?
Brett, I actually sent this article out to the offices last week when it came out, and we had a discussion about it in Coral Springs at their team meeting last week. Yes, we are held to a higher standard than buyers or sellers. The way to look at it is they buy or sell a house on average every 10 years. We're supposed to be doing it on a daily basis. We know better than the sellers do. If we walk into a house and they've converted their garage into a bedroom or a family room, as a realtor, you should be able to walk in and know immediately if it was done with permits or not. Because in order to pull a permit on it, you're floating the garage floor back up to the same level as the rest of the house. So if you walk in and there's a step down, doesn't have permits. You know, you can go into the tax records and you can verify what their tax bill is. You can go into the internet and check to see what permits were pulled. If the seller is telling you they put a new roof on the house last year and there are no permits for it, you know you have an issue. You need a permit to install a new air conditioner, to install new water heaters. There's records of that. So if what the seller's telling you is not jiving with the records you're seeing, it's your duty to have that conversation and to disclose that to potential buyers.
There you go. All right. Well, real quick, if you were not at family reunion, if you go into KW Connect and search Vision Speech, all the slides are there, and Luke will get those uploaded into the real estate stats. They just came out, but just so you're aware where we put them, at the very top of the website, there's Florida, Georgia, Texas, and national. When you click national, we keep all the vision slides up to date here. But currently, I've just got it in a PDF. And there's one thing I wanted to show. So Gary was talking about we finished the year 2025 nationally with 4.1 million home sales. They're projecting 2026 to be 4.3. So we do agree there's going to be an increase in home sales in 2026. However, I don't know if I've heard it differently this year, but this slide tells a interesting story. So it's actually the volume of transactions compared to home sales. So if you look at 2025, it was the third highest market volume in history. And we had one of the lowest home sale years in many, many years. So that's fascinating because obviously price appreciation plays into this. And so let's say I'm a real estate professional that sells 25 units a year and sold $5 million in 2021. And then in 2025, I only sold 20 transactions. I might have sold more production than I did in 2021 with less home sales. So it does lend itself to a strategy of raising your average sales price. I think price appreciation naturally will raise your average sales price, but you should also be looking at your total volume compared to your total units, because I do think they're telling a very different story. What do you think of this?
Hey Brett, it's a conversation that I've had over the years with agents in regards to you get to choose your client. I think about circle prospecting and working in certain communities to kind of break different price points. And it was a big focus earlier on in my career. to get away from the 200, 300, 400,000 and get to a place where I'm prospecting 500, 700, $800,000 communities. I would rather do 20 transactions than 30 transactions all day and make more money.
Yeah, I mean, I think the game at some scale for a real estate agent's units, right? But if your unit counts down, that doesn't mean you specifically made less money. I think it lends itself to the total volume you sold because we're paid on volume, right? Um, but Topo,
Brad,
you're right. I mean, there's certainly strategies in real estate to raise your average sales price and circle prospecting or doing open houses on higher price listings or your marketing strategies um, to higher price points is certainly a thing. Maybe that becomes part of your strategy moving forward. One more question. Fort Lauderdale conference room.
yeah. Hey, Brett and Steve. So I agree with what Michael said, and yet at the same time, the average upswing in a market is what, 7 to 10 years, and we're right there. And so you have to be careful about just being complacent with doing lower numbers, not lower units, because it's great if you're selling less homes and prices are going up. However, if it reverse happens and prices start going down, you're so complacent doing less units, now you're in trouble because now financially you're getting paid a lot less. So I was always under the guidance from other coaches of it's all about the units, because if you know how to increase your unit sales, you can always increase by doing more actions. So I personally always judge by units.
There you go. Well, there's your update, guys. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
See you
Thank
next
you,
week.
Brett.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.